Oh gosh, it is Saturday morning, 9:57 a.m. here on January the 21st, 2023. And we are just gripping here. We're going about as fast as we can humanly go here on the podcast this morning. We are blazing trails and we are breaking speed barriers. We are pioneer trailblazing, psychonaut chasing, truth facing, speed racing, line tracing, mountain basing things here. We're blowing smoke, folks. Okay. All right, honky tonks. DMT Dream. All right, is DMT Dream. Here we go. Is DMT what you ask people when they take DMT? What was it like? Was it like was it like a dream or something? And they say, no, it was more real than life. No, it was more real than life. Really? More real than life? How does this? How does this more real than life? Can anything be more real than life? Death? But just depending, it's going to be a different kind of living. I mean, it's the afterlife. So death is like maybe just the part where you die, and then you go to the next place. And then you're in the afterlife, right? It's still, I mean, what's more real than life? I mean, I don't know if anything's more real than life. That death is as real as life, but not even in the sense that Jesus conquered death. So, life became more real than death with Jesus, which I think is hilarious. That, again, it just is a red flag for me that DMT is not necessary. It's a virtual space, right? I mean, good things can come from these virtual spaces, but they're completely not necessary. And I have to let's look up the definition of virtual. I want to know where the line is with virtual. Virtual. Okay. Almost or near as described, but not completely, or according to strict definition. The virtual absence of border controls. Okay. That was the sentence. Not physically existing as such, but made by software to appear to do so. Carried out, this is the next one, carried out, access, or stored by means of a computer, especially over a network. And again, I mean, this is just, whatever, The only thing that allows me to downplay this again is just that it's crazy. You're crazy if you think we live in a simulation. Compared to the way we think now, modern culture, it's crazy to believe in Jesus, and it's crazy to believe in a simulation. No one gets out of justifying how crazy their beliefs are. Even if you're like the dude that's just being like, well, we just don't know, so I'm just going to be chill. Like, I'm not saying that's a bad way to do it. I appreciate like the level of honesty, but there's also a willingness. There's the level of honesty and the willingness to engage in the pursuit of this thing. So as much as you can play it, cool, can you actually care as well? And, I hear about it with so many people. And I think I want to have Zane on just to talk about all of his DMT trips. I think next podcast with Zane, we're going to talk about, yeah, I'll just have him talk about all the things that he experienced and what they felt like. And, including it felt like he was like, somehow he was consumed and like pretty much shit out or given birth to again in the DMT space. And it felt so good for him. There are people who do DMT so much that the entities and the powers that be there, they say, hey, you've spent too much time here. And when you hear something like that happening, there's a part of you that goes like, oh, wow, well, these guys are reasonable. What reasonable little entities? Reasonable little entities. They don't want me to be here. They're so nice. Like, but they'll laugh at you, they'll make fun of you. They'll make things and try to teach you how to make things. Yet you can't even make the most of your marriage or your job at work. And I get it. It's really tough. I mean, that's why these things, like, why do you have your issue to begin with? Maybe some of us caused these issues ourselves. Maybe some of us in our attitudes and our belief systems and our value systems, maybe they were so screwed up that they put us at a deficit in a place where we were just so immature that we just were weak. But I'm not even that. I'm not trying to like, that's true. So what are the ways in which we address it? Well, if there's ontological shock, that means like you go back to the beginning of your worldview and that shit gets shook to the point where now all of a sudden you question the validity of your own worldview. I mean, maybe that's where, and isn't that what like therapy and everything, what is the root of the matter? You go through this crazy cognitive behavioral therapy stuff where they mimic the REM cycle in your eyes to get you to unlock memories with yourself. I mean, whether you get there through meditation, psychedelics, prayer, therapy, behavioral therapy, a lot of this stuff is really similar. It's like, even in psychedelics and in therapy, you're trying to do these practices that get you to unlock and get you to somehow connect with the part of you that was hurt at the beginning of you being hurt, so that you can understand what caused the hurt, so that you can begin to manage and wrap your head around what caused the hurt. Therefore, you can begin to process your feelings about the hurt. But you have to go back to like, a lot of times those feelings, like that's done with like a forgiveness, right? So like a lot of times yes, this person did you wrong. Logically, you can go, nope, they were wrong. It was proven in court. Everybody knows it. Even if it wasn't proven in court, it's like, that's a wrong thing to do. And this person is the villain. And it's like, well, so logically you're justified in thinking that person's the villain, but also for the sake of your own strength, willpower, power, and wellness, are you going to be able to forgive the villain? And forgiving the villain that's the work that you can't fake. And if you do fake it, it will surface. You have to forgiveness is like a continual process that you really have to like be mindful of. With forgiveness, you have to start at the very, very core of what it means to forgive somebody. Or you can start with superficial reasons and then ultimately realize 20 years later, wait, you never forgave that person, even though you said you did. And so you got to go back to the root. There's like the root of forgiveness, right? And then I think there's also the root of the issue, which usually is where it stems from. But yeah, so people here, it's funny to me that there needs to be these realities outside of the reality that we live in science and and in science and in psychedelics and stuff that help us in the way we see and manage and interact with this world, right? So, and it's this like it's so much with virtual, anything virtual, right? I mean, you can binge movies, you can binge like music, right? Those also go good with psychedelics. It's like listening to music on psychedelics. You could do that for hours. You know, you can get lost in VR now. I mean, it's just the amount of time you can spend doing something and then being like, "Whoa, where was I?" Like I said, it could be prayer, it could be meditation, it could be making music, it could be making art, it could just be working really hard at your job. But it's still this sense of like when you, I guess, what am I trying to say here? Like cuz really the oh, I guess what I was trying to say is that the reality that's outside of this reality that Christians tap into all the time is just the reality of the kingdom of God. God the creator, Jesus the, the death and resurrection of Jesus. That's in really every other reality is just people said used to say God and now they say universe. Well, who created the universe? What created the universe? The Big Bang? Well, what created the Big Bang? Different kinds of nothing, as some scientists say. Well, if you have kinds of nothing, that sounds like something. So what caused that something? And you can't get out of this. There's no like, oh, well, the reality outside of this reality is the DMT reality. Okay, well, great. What created the DMT reality? Because I know what created the reality that's outside of Earth. I know what created heaven in the spiritual realm. I have an idea and a justification for what created those things. What created the DMT space? Is the DMT space the same space as heaven or hell? Is astral projection, is that a glimpse of what it's going to be like to be in heaven? How can we confirm this? It's and don't get me wrong, I know people, man, people don't take psychedelics and have crazy things happen to them. So I'm not trying to say that sure, the DMT space, that's its own thing, like when as far as in reference to people getting there through DMT, but that doesn't mean that they don't connect. The DMT spaces don't connect to the portal space, like, the wormhole spaces or the portal spaces where people are traveling through portals and everything. And what is heaven going to be like? Because I personally think with everything that I've experienced, I go, okay, well, how is heaven going to be what this is, but even more so? And if we look at the fact that Jesus had a physical body after the resurrection, but he also was able to have to walk through doors, to be seen as he walked through the door. There's a level of density in which we'll be able to, it seems like, and we're going to have glorified bodies like him. So we're going to be able to change the density, our own density. But that means consciousness. How dense is consciousness? So if I have the same level of consciousness, if I'm just as conscious when I'm in my fully physical form as I am when I walk through the door in the form that allows me to walk through the door, then what is consciousness? And does consciousness eventually get to a immaterial thing, or is it something material? But how could God exist outside of material? Is there any part of us that exists outside of the material? I would say, right, the spiritual. But right now, we think that the spiritual is like molecules still. We still think that like the spiritual is the spirit molecule. And I'm just riffing here because I continually go back to from an ontological point of view, there's still a creator that created the possibility and the mechanisms and the substances needed, everything needed to have a religious experience. So who put all of that in place? What put all of that in place for us to be able to do this? To take DMT and then, like he says, the shamans go up the tree of life, right? There's chaos and there's order and there's the tree of life in the middle. And the shamans go up the tree of life. Like I said before, could there be a counterfeit tree of life? It's funny because, man, when I got really out there and was listening to some Ashayana Dean stuff, there was I think, is it the Sephiroth or something like that? It's like the tree of life, but sometimes they have like 10 points on them, and another tree of life, it has like 12 points. And she was saying like the diagrams with only 10 points on it is the lower vibrational. It's like the draconian version of like the 12 point Sephiroth. Let me see, how do I say this again? Let me see. Okay, so yeah, this is Cabal stuff as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So there's one with 10, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let me see here. Let me see. Sephiroth tree with 12. Oh, the 12 Sephiroth true tree of life is one of the first things that comes up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. So I'm remembering it right. So even in even in the completely like, oh gosh, like even in the worldview here, this is a worldview that sees Jesus as like a teacher, but they also see them. There's been multiple Jesuses throughout history. There's like Jesus 1, Jesus 2, Jesus 3. And in that religion and in that worldview, they're the ones that say that there's a distorted tree of life and there's the real tree of life. So the concept isn't that crazy. I mean, it already exists. I think the Bible could have gone and explained some of this stuff in great detail, but I don't know if it would have done us as much of a service as it has by just keeping it as stripped down as it is. Because if you have to use all your heart, mind, soul, and intention and everything to figure out what the Bible means, then the inference of these things eventually it will start to make sense. And I think it's important for us to have some sort of like a nuts and bolts a view on how it works, and because that way we all can kind of share an understanding of how it works. If some people want to go deeper, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, how do we as Christians, how do we as people even just go up and live life between chaos and order? Do you have to climb up this tree of life, Is there a way to do the work in which, you can do a little bit of work every day so you don't have to? I mean, it's really tough. The world we live in, it's really tough, actually. I mean, I'm not trying to act like, it's just so easy for people to, not go work jobs. I mean, yeah. I mean, especially with the amount that I've just chosen to not prioritize money in order to maintain the outlook that I have. I get it. It's going to be hard work going and working at that crappy job all the time. And it's going to be hard work being broke if you don't. So either way, we got our work cut out for us. But this idea that There is this realm that is outside of the chaos and order of the earth that, that's the funniest thing is I could just see, like, you're climbing up and down the tree of life and you're like, yup, I am in control. I am in communion in a way in which I could not be any other way. And I'm in communion with the spiritual world in a way that it only comes through this way, which makes sense, right? Because no one gets to the Father except through the Son. So there's what to me makes psychedelics counterfeit is that it makes you, if you're taking medication for depression, if you stop taking your medication, are you depressed? Yes. Okay. Then even when you're taking your medication, you're still battling with depression. So the medication doesn't get to the root of the issue. And again, this is my point with psychedelics. But anyone that is depressed and using antidepressant medication to continue to try, if they're using the medication, and this could be a lifelong process. You could maybe never get off medication, but in your heart, are you willing? Are you trying? Is your intention to use this medication to get you to a point to where you no longer need it? Is this the thing that lightens the load for you enough to begin to address the things that you can that will allow you to strengthen yourself in the ways that need to be strengthened so that the depression is no longer affecting you as much as it is? And it's the same thing with psychedelics. So we still have to reach somewhere, even though we're using these tools, and we still have to reach somewhere outside of this experience to ground and pull from and to guide us. And they do, and again, the people climbing up the tree of life do it all the time. They're talking to who knows what out there. So they're even leaning deeper into outside of themselves, I should say, at least. I mean, they rely on the spirit realm, right? They're getting angels or whoever, quote unquote, angels, or, whatever kind of spirits are communicating with them. So you can take the pain meds, you can take the antidepressant medication, you can take the psychedelics. But if you aren't going to use those as just a little tool to give you a little bit of therapy or a release or openness so that then you can actually begin to work on what it is you need to work on. But in the moment that you're working on what it is you need to work on, who are you giving thanks for that moment? I mean, wow, there's actually medication out here for you. And you're just going to take it and be like, all right, doctors told me I got to take the medication. Yeah, I don't want to take medication. And then you're going to go out and have a drink with your medication. It doesn't make me feel good, but I just want to drink like a normal person. There's the, see, at least with the Eastern practices, there's a detachment from the desires that you have to like live a certain kind of life, whether it's like out in society or whatever. And there's like this, there is hope that comes from it because again, it's just giving you another option. This is kind of my point. If like Jesus Christ is the only radical solution and objection to psychedelics, and it's the same thing with, I mean, the only real one. Like there's other objections in a way, right? Like, so like, again, like with Eastern religions, you can sit there and you can change it's giving you a solution or a different point of view on how you can look at your situation. That's what these religions are doing, right? So like whether it's through looking inwardly, focusing on your breath, um, changing the way you value what you desire. So putting your desires, your personal desires, kind of lower on your value system and putting other people or putting maybe, I guess not just your desires, but like the definitely some of the desires that just go, that you just were given to you that by society, you know, it allows you to be like, wait a second, are those, this is what society tells me to do or how to look at things. But is this really the way that I should be? And so, you know, religions and spiritual practices, they give you that ability to focus on something else. And even the law of attraction, right? You just, if you're feeling really crappy about your situation and you need money, well, what do? You meditate on how good it's going to feel when you have that money. Then you're going to send out that feeling of, you know, instead of sitting there with the low vibration, you're going to be sitting there with one that the universe is going to respond to in a way in which you create a way in which you willed it to happen. And that's what's so wild about Christianity is it's like you give your will, you surrender over to God and you focus on Jesus. You focus on the hope that you have in Jesus and in eternal life, which has nothing to do with like the money you're going to make on this planet. You focus on suffering for a justified reason with Jesus. You know, talk about walking the straight and narrow or doing what's right when no one's watching. I mean, the ultimate form of that is like you do what's right when everyone's watching. You do what's right when you got a gun to your head. I'm not saying other religions don't like have the, you know, the capacity to stand up to violence and everything like that. Just saying they're two different. The point is that no matter what we do, we're going to look outside of ourselves and our situations. If we want to heal the root of the issue, then we got to get outside of the material supplements and medicine. And we have to connect to something even deeper than that. So they also talked about, and I think I'll edit a bunch of that stuff out. I feel like I talked about that for way too long for no reason. I think I just get warmed up. Okay, so they also talked about animals using psychedelics and how even flies do as well. And they were just saying, we don't know what to do with this. Well, I'll tell you what we don't do with this. We don't make this the most important thing about culture. You know, this isn't more important than eating. This isn't more important than drinking. This isn't more important than breathing. This isn't more important than just loving each other. This isn't more important than sacrificing your life for your kids, should you need to. But sure, it's important in the way that medicine is important and therapy is important, and the conversation we have about dealing with stuff. Sure, it's important. So, and you know, I talked about it earlier. I'm kind of bounced around on my notes, but you know, because we also don't know what to do with what we don't know what to do with, he says. And so now we're going to open up a whole nother box of things that we don't know what to do with. And then we're going to go out to space as well and open up even more boxes of things that we don't know what to do with. Now, the only reason why we can do this is because, God has given us, God did give us curiosity. So curiosity is not a bad thing. Sure, it easily is manipulated, but yeah, we have our curiosity for a reason. Um, I mean, yeah, that's curiosity and imagination kind of go hand in hand, and it kind of goes hand in hand with like the whole point, right? Like the terror and awe. We're like, uh, I'm curious to go scale that huge mountain and look over the peak. And then you get up the mountain and you're just like, God is amazing. Whoa, this is incredible. The only thing that allows for this to happen is a God that created all of this. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be exploring space. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be exploring psychedelics. Um, but I am saying, just like everything else, from sex to eating, there is a responsibility that we have, and a responsibility we have to God, and a standard that He has set, and a code of conduct that He has set that we are supposed to adhere to. And a lot of that is, I mean, we see it in the Bible about legalism, and circumcision. And do people have to be circumcised and not? And Jesus is the new covenant, and now people don't have to be circumcised. Jews and Gentiles are saved. So he's getting us to focus less on external things and behavior and more on Jesus. And it's like the toughest thing to do. That's like the hardest part about Christianity. It's the hardest thing about doing what's right when no one's watching, or what's right when everyone's watching. So he is what we are to be focused on no matter what. And that's why you can learn about all the 12 astrology signs and all the 12 archetypes. And you can learn about yourself so much through astrology that you start to, feel like you're getting you're mastering yourself. And then you start to study other signs, and you start to relate to other signs in other ways. And then you start to kind of master yourself in this collective way that's not just based off your sign. It's based off of loving and accepting everybody's sign, and seeing how you relate to everybody's sign in an empathetic way, or in a psychological way, or whatever it is. But essentially, it's like these are all, you can just say what Jesus said, and that's just to go out and love others the way you want to be treated. Just if you love the Lord God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and you love others the same way, eventually you will become that master that you're trying to ascend to in any other religion. But the difference is like the grace. It's the actually getting there. So many people want to take shortcuts or fast cuts or whatever to get to where they're going spiritually. And and they look down on people like, someone who does psychedelics for therapy, and then they look at, or someone who takes antidepressant medication, and they're looking at someone who's just dealing with it with their Christian faith. And they're like, yeah, that person, man, they don't have to do that. Why don't they do what we're doing? But just because by the time you're 50, you've got everything worked out, and this person, they're 60 and they finally get everything worked out, but they did it just within a relationship with Christ. I don't get how there's no way of saying the way you did it was better than the way that they did it. You can only respect the way that they did it was without any of that stuff. It's like doing a delivery, like giving birth without medicine, or a home birth. But you at least got to respect it. And it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing for even labor in a hospital. You still have to you still have to respect it. It's still crucial and amazing. And even if it was a terrible birth experience, it's like even more so. You gotta be like, dang, you're tough. You're a badass. If you have a bad trip and you pulled through, that's awesome. But why were you able to pull through? Is it because you're just so awesome? Is that part of it? Is that all of it? Let's see. Yeah, maybe I already said this earlier. They said, I don't know if I recommend anything to everyone. That's what Jordan Peterson said. And I just go, yeah, well, again, how I love that he says that, because I would say that I recommend Jesus to anyone. But that's just where objective truth becomes really tough. Because again, as much as Jordan sees the importance of the, he sees just like how the Bible is the one story we have, right? So the narrative, and then religious, which is, Jesus is a religious teacher and meaning all come together, but yet he's not, but yet he still wouldn't recommend that to everyone. Our culture grow out of the Bible, and it's grounded in the Bible, for better or for worse. So yeah, there he goes again. Our culture grew out of the Bible and is grounded in the Bible, for better or for worse. But I wouldn't recommend the Bible. I wouldn't recommend that one thing, the Bible, to everyone. See, because he's sitting there still thinking about, well, there could be a bad outcome. Not just because everyone reads the Bible doesn't mean everyone's going to have a good outcome with it. So I don't want to do that as a psychologist, or as a, I don't want to put everyone in that corner. But that's where that's where we're all at. He's saying, I wouldn't recommend it for everyone, but our culture grew out of the Bible and is grounded in the Bible, for better or for worse. And it's like, well, yeah, obviously for better or for worse. Like, if I'm for better or for worse, I still want to point you in the right direction. And he says, know who you are and why you think the way you think. Why you think you know why you think the way you think. Again, that's that ontological shock. That's that disruption of fundamental axioms. You think you know why you think the way you think. And then he says thoughts are greater than you in some sense, and it's true. Is a thought conscious? Does it have its own consciousness? I mean, thoughts are greater than, thoughts and the idea, thoughts are greater than you in some sense, obviously, but like concepts, right? Thoughts, concepts. Sure, like uncreated grace. Grace has existed since God's grace has existed since before anything existed. God's grace has existed since before he created anything. That's what I meant to say. So yes, thoughts are greater than you in some sense. God thought of you before you were even born. But, that's awe and terror right there. That's a thought that puts you on the edge of awe and terror. These thoughts that, like, God knows the amount of hair on your head when he does everyone, that'll put you on the edge of terror and awe. Yeah, why you think why you think the way you think. Yeah, there's a good that'll send you down the path of presupposition, questioning your precepts. Let's see. Everyone is an unconscious proponent of some philosopher. Well, that's true, and I forget who said that, but some smarty pants said that, and Jordan Peterson said it too. Yeah, everyone is the unconscious proponent of some philosopher. Well, it's true, and that's why the precept, even the precept arguments about debates just get me, because I just go, oh, this is a echoing. This is a gong that resounds forever. And just because the we can debate all we want till we're blue in the face, and people will. There's still something outside of the debate that we're debating about, and that's going to be true regardless of where anyone stands on the debate. One person could be right, both people could be wrong, whatever. Both people could be right in a way. There is kind of like I said, I call it the cosmic joke. It's like the fact that everyone is justified in their own eyes, right? The fact that we all do feel so like the way we see things are right. And you can't get out of it, because even if you're like less dogmatic about it and you're just like emotional about it, like we just gotta let everyone live and we love everybody, like then that emotional stuff becomes dogmatic. You can't tell anybody that you don't like the choices they're making. That's not loving. It's like, well, now you're just getting emotionally dogmatic. So there's definitely a joke to this. So how do we actually take it seriously? How do we laugh at the joke and laugh when we need to laugh, but also not like, become the butt of the joke to the point where we lose value, we lose the meaning. Thoughts exist in a hierarchy of values. The more profound the thought, the more it deals with the fundamental value. The fundamental value are upon in which many other values depend. So he's saying there's like, okay, a shared collective value system. And this I think maybe this ties into social contract theory, but I also think it goes deeper than that. But yeah, because I don't think just because I think values could be one way in one place and another way in another place. And I think in God's eyes, just because both places are like, hey, we do what we do and you do what you do, doesn't mean they're both equally right in God's eyes. One could have different values that God is not as pleased with than the other. But I do think that's true, though. I do think like the way we know what values are important is by the ones that do affect the collective, whether it's, and again, I think it affects the collective because of where we came from, not because of where we've just ended up, and we just adapt to whatever time period we're in and we come up with a new value system. No, I think the reason why the fundamental values are the way they are is because God created them to depend, or us to depend on those values. And he brings up a good point here. He talks about like, when you are, and when you're married and your wife doesn't do the dishes or you don't do the dishes, then you guys make this agreement how you're going to run the house and how you're going to do things. She's going to pay for this. You're going to pay for that. Well, you stop paying. You're going to pay the rent, right? She's going to pay some other bills. You stop paying the rent, and it's going to come as a shock to her, kind of like an ontological shock. Where you guys started the plan, and you guys all of a sudden you deviated from the plan, and it's like, wait a second. We were supposed to go from A to B, not from A to D. And that's like a small thing. Like, I don't do the dishes, and Sam's going to be like, dude, you haven't done the dishes all week. How are we supposed to get to where we're going if you're not going to do the dishes? But that's a small ontological shock. A big one would be your partner is cheating on you. You're 10 years married, and all of a sudden they're cheating on you out of nowhere. And you're like, what? And then you're back to the uncertainty. And the deeper you go, the more religious you get. The deepest values are religious, right? You tremble, they are so deep. You work out your salvation with fear and trembling. So honesty, as far as a fundamental value in this case with the married couple, I mean, if there was a hierarchy of values in a marriage, what do you think it would be? Well, they're going to be the values that are best for both people. So like honesty, we value communication, trustworthiness, and getting thrown back into uncertainty. I mean, it's like that is the beautiful thing about the continuity that relationships establish in your life. So when you commit to someone, devote yourself to someone for the rest of your life, and then you have this continuity of living with them for 7 years, and then you bring a kid into the world or whatever, and you guys, now you've been together 14 years and your kid is 7, and now your kid is having kids. And guess what? The fact that you guys shared the continuity, shared in the continuity of each other's lives over time is what gives it meaning. You cannot get the meaning any other way. The proof is in the pudding. It's in the doing it. You cannot fake that. The longer you stay committed to that's why family is so important. The longer you stay committed to someone, the more you will see that, because there's highs and there's lows. But guess what? When you get through the lows and you hit the highs, there's this reality to the relationship that just is steady in the middle. No matter how far the pendulum swings, you guys are boom, steady, focused, connected. That continuity of, being in the car together when the accident happened, being on the plane together when, flying somewhere when they all lost your luggage. Oh, the scare of when one of you went into the hospital. I mean, all of that shared timeline, emotional, stuff, it just is so valuable, because we live in a completely uncertain world, right? That's why God is the one constant and everything else is not. But we need that constant, right? We need to ground ourselves in that constant. Well, family is the one constant. Once you're born, your dad is always your dad and your mom is always your mom. And you can experience continuity with people outside of, it could be work relationships. Like you could be living by yourself and you have worked at the same place for 20 years, but you got to know that where you're spending your time like that, that is the most valuable. That is the fertilizer for your life, is who you are sharing in this continual, like I said, just the continuity aspect of relationships over a long period of time is fertilizer for your life. And so it helps us deal with uncertainty. And let me keep going here. The best values are religious. You tremble, they are so deep. I already said that. And the Bible is the best answer we have. If you don't, this is what Jordan Peterson said. And the Bible is the best answer we have. We've got. If you don't like it, fine. Do better. Good luck. And I have unforgettable telephone Bible theory here. Uh, I don't know what I meant by that. I think. Okay. Okay. Wow, it came back. Okay, so Jordan Peterson is talking about what he thinks happened because he's talking about Cain and Abel, and he's talking about it's like a 5 sentence story, but you got stories like Crime and Punishment, and then you have stories like Cain and Abel, and it's like they both Cain and Abel somehow packs just as much, if not more, in to its 5 sentences than all of Crime and Punishment. So this is something I'm saying. He didn't say this, but I was just anyways. But he thinks part of the reason for that is because the Bible was an oral tradition, right, and it was being passed down, and so the things that there were all the unforgettable lines in the Bible through oral tradition just faded away due to the fact that they weren't necessary. So only the nuts and bolts stuck. And so that's why I called it so the things that weren't forgettable were the ones that got passed down. And that's how the Bible was shaped to be the way it is right now. And I called it the unforgettable telephone Bible theory. Which is hilarious. But it was an interesting thought. I just wanted to throw that in there. It was really just an interesting thought. Comment if you have any thoughts about that, though. The unforgettable telephone Bible theory. Let's see here. And I think that's pretty much the end of my notes. I mean, he talked a little bit about his how he went through the Genesis lecture theory, and he was just how he went through it one sentence at a time, and what does this mean? And then communicating the process of thinking it through, which is kind of what I like doing here on this show with you guys a little bit. Is like, it's fun to listen to comedians talk about comedy and the rules of comedy, or, I've heard comedians say there's only actually 7 jokes, and every joke can fit within one of those 7 categories. But I feel the same way about talking with people about thinking, because I just think, like we said today, you think you know why you think the way you think, which is the quest that I have been on for a few years now. Because as a kid, and I thank God, I was so sure of Jesus. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that when you're young, it's beautiful because you just don't have, at least for me, I just didn't have the doubts, right? And I just went so hard, and I felt like because of that, I got to experience God in a really profound way. And in a fun way, in an enjoyable way, in a way in which I didn't doubt it, and I didn't have to doubt my own salvation. I was young. I believed in God. I had gotten baptized. I chose to get baptized. Like, I believed, like the idea of wrong doctrine at that age, I don't even know how you would begin to teach kids in a way in which they would truly understand the importance of right doctrine. Like, I think certain things you could make an appeal to them, and they'd be like, oh yeah, sure. But I don't think a kid really, really, really cares. They're more stoked on the essentials of, who Jesus is, what Jesus did, who God is, what God did, how we interact with the Holy Spirit. I think like, it's just wild to me. And again, maybe I'm just like maybe I'm just like too feely, maybe I appeal to emotions too strongly, because I just go, I don't get how these kids that love Jesus, but don't have, yeah, anyways. Yeah, I'm getting tired, but I mean, cause all right, this is one of the last things I wrote here, but from the thing, cause Jordan Peterson was talking about kids and how they just have unquestionable virtue, and that's like the part that I just go, it is that virtue, it's like when you think about Jesus interacting with young kids, and you think about how long we've been around in comparison to Jesus, when I think about Jesus hanging out with kids, I just think of like all the pictures you see where like everyone's just smiling, laughing. I don't see Jesus going up to kids and doing anything else but appealing to the childlike nature and the virtue, the unquestionable virtue that a kid has. I think Jesus absolutely loves that and is not going to go in that situation and like, let me grow these kids up real quick. And somehow I feel like that still relates to us in our, infinitesimalness compared to God. I don't know if that's a word, but we are babies. We are children of God. So I guess that's part of why I do make an emotional appeal. And is much as I learn, as much as I get older and more calloused and more discerning, I still there's still this part of me that goes back to the kid who I was at that age and tries to connect to that feeling of what it felt like when my peace was the strongest it had ever been. And it wasn't just because I was young, but it was because I was young and I was putting my faith in Jesus. And I was in a household where everyone was living to the best of their ability to put their faith in Jesus and express it in a genuine way. The peace from back then is part of the hope that for tomorrow. It's crazy. It's crazy that your childhood can be that impactful to the point where you can it's worth holding on to. There's treasure, there's spiritual treasure there. And the inheritance we're going to get, it's not going to be just material. The value and the meaning is not just going to be like, wow, we all got a mansion in the sky. Look at this. I've got marble counters. It's like, there's going to be a deeper meaning to it than just the like, it's like getting a ring with an inscription in. You're not just getting a ring, you're getting something that has a deeper meaning to it that transcends the material. And we're going to get an inheritance like that. It's going to be peace. Be so much peace. We're going to be like, well, I don't understand it, but I'm not going to question it. And if you want to question it, there's going to be peace in it. So I don't know how I don't know how you justify God giving so many people peace. I know Orthodox people call it pre-lust, where, people who aren't Orthodox, who feel like they're having some sort of encounter with God or the Holy Spirit, it's really them just wishing and kind of having, I don't know if they think it's just like us fabricating it ourselves, or if we're actually interacting with like if it's, or if it's a counterfeit spirit that's allowing us to experience that. But again, I just go, woo, a kid, it blows my mind, the people that, and I have a friend that was a part of a cult that used the Bible, and they would abuse kids and in multiple ways. And you just go, and this person, my friend, is still a Christian, still reads the same Bible, has a completely different understanding and usage and relationship to it now. And that has had to be healed. To me, people could say, well, that's how, to me, it's funny because it's like a glass half empty, half full thing. Some people would say that example is why we shouldn't have the Bible, because you can use it for such evil. But I just go, that to me confirms what the Bible is actually teaching. Because that's exactly what evil is. Evil wants to take truth, rework it, repackage it. Hey, now you're at AA. And I've been having conversations. It's funny, and it's just been coming my way lately about AA and how it's gone from originally a Christian thing to more of like a Buddhist thing. And so all the time people it's really why Christianity is going to be the hot topic religion that it is, because people are going to want to repackage this. They're going to Jordan Peterson, whether he realizes it or not, it's like he's repackaging the Bible so that it's palatable to the world in a new way that's maybe a little less offensive and a little bit more comprehensive. But if it's not and the thing that's slick about it is that he's genuinely looking for truth. So because of that, there's genuine truth in there. He's on a truth quest. And God isn't going to like leave him hanging. He knows Jordan Peterson's heart. And frankly, I think Jordan Peterson's heart is amazing. I wish more Christians would be as passionate or courageous or even have a level of intensity to do more work like this. But again, but then I also think about, like I always say, I think about any Christian that's just that is thinking more simply and highlighting relationships more, and I go, that's so beautiful. But I really do love Jordan Peterson's heart, and I do think that he's on a truth quest, and I do think that eventually he's going to come to the truth. And it's that everything that he came up with psychologically is true, but what makes it really true is that Jesus is really true. He can come up with all the things that he wants to, about the Bible, but what makes it true, like tried and true, is that it's not just a great story. It's history. It's the truth. So with that said, oh man, a stretch here. I think that's it for this one. And I feel rusty, but ultimately it was really exciting, and there's a lot more to come. I appreciate you guys being here. And if you have any questions or comments, please get at me. And yeah, that's about it. All right, man. Talk about coming to a quick halt. All right, love you guys. Bye.